Aloha, welcome. Feels weird and kind of funny to have such a soft opening and then be like, hello, welcome to Fuck Spirituality. Today's gonna be super fun. I'm really excited. Before we get started, let's just take a few deep, slow inhales and exhales. And as you look around you, just removing any distractions, maybe putting your phone on silent as I'm doing myself now. Giving yourself permission to settle into the space. Taking deep, slow inhales and exhales as if you could breathe into the bottoms of your feet. Invoking the energies of the earth to rise and meet your feet. Grounding any excess energy in the nervous system. Scanning your body for anywhere you're holding tension. Releasing, relaxing, unwinding. Circulating your breath throughout your entire being. Melting any tension in the body. Resting, relaxing, unwinding. All patterns of tension that are not you, have never been you, could not be you. And however you experience this, whether it's internally or externally or anything in between, just connecting to God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it that you are. Just allowing every cell of your body to be filled with unconditional love and light. Just calling in your angels and your guides, your soul's direct connection to this body. Any tension in the body, resting, relaxing, and unwinding. Letting the stillness of presence permeate everything. Just asking that whatever is required to fulfill this agreement of fuck spirituality in the highest, fullest expression of what that is in its essence, as it was brought to me, to be done so today with grace, ease, and mercy to the physical and all things affecting the physical to the ethereal, integrated perfectly throughout all bodies, and expressed fully and completely as only you know how. Well, on some level or another, I have been waiting to share this class for like 6 years, 5 years, 6 years. um yeah, it was kind of funny when the title came to me and I was like, okay, I mean that makes sense, but also interesting, especially because my whole life has been radical, ridiculous, crazy spiritual experiences that I've been trying to run away from my entire life. And whenever I would veer off of that path, my life would crumble. And every time I would return, everything would perfectly align. And so it's been more about an experience of surrendering into what is. And I think that's why, for me, when I see what passes as spirituality in the world today, I've just never had any interest, starting with being raised in a family with missionaries of one sort or another. And a lovely, beautiful people, my parents. But like it just never made sense to me immediately. And the experience of being in that environment whilst having my own experience that was far outside anything that I was noticing externally, I had to just completely trust myself. And in the end, that's really what the essence of fuck spirituality is about, is trusting yourself. Came to me many years ago of trust your myth, live your legend. Whatever that myth is for you, and it can always change and move as time goes on, For a long time in my life, it was the myth of the unicorn. And so I would live out the legend of that full faith trust that, like, as I take the next step forward, the rainbow bridge is going to be built because it's me, I'm a unicorn, like that kind of an energy. But the way that spirituality is expressed in the world is all about looking to how to get things right. When getting things right is the interest, then you will always get things wrong. There is nothing right or wrong, good or bad. There is only the most efficient path. Plants only observe the pathway of the light that reaches the photoreceptors to produce chlorophyll. Source, as it has become us, is likewise only observing the most efficient path to absorption and unification with it. The infinite truth of it. And the infinite ways in which that looks is how we perceive each other. And within that, there is no right or wrong way to be. There is just the right or wrong way for you at this moment. But you don't have to concern yourself with what is right or wrong, just what is the most efficient next step for you to make right in this moment. And sometimes the refinement and precision of it is sentence to sentence. Speaking and saying something and feeling, what does that feel like to put that out there? It's the process of refinement, of bringing things into greater coherence, but you're incapable of doing that if you don't first try, put something out there, because you're trying to get it right. So you'll never know who you are. I've learned to do what I do by simply testing things out, having an idea of maybe this is what's happening. Maybe that thought I'm having isn't mine. Let me talk to them as if they spoke it out loud to me. And that's how I discovered telepathy. Being in massage school and and working on people and then feeling it inside my own body as if I was touching myself. Just all of these little things and just trusting the experience, being curious enough about your experience to dive into it. Everything here is research. A scientist doesn't go into an experiment and personalize the results. And this is why I say the first step to healing is depersonalizing everything. This class really began for me when I was living in San Francisco, and I woke up one day, and this happens, I'll like wake up from a dream and I'll be like a completely different person. And I woke up and I just said out loud, I'm done with the healing journey. And it was like speaking through me. And I was like, what does that even mean? I didn't really know what it meant, but I felt the power of that. And it took years to really move through and okay, I'm done with the healing journey. What does that mean in this case or this experience? How can I apply that to my experience to be complete with it? The easiest way to tell this is that basically every spiritual teaching or healing modality out there, you can tell how integrated or disintegrated it is from truth, which again isn't a specific thing, but you'll know it. Does this add or subtract time? Does this add or subtract to my process? What passes for spirituality is largely an addiction to process and nothing to do with reality. The new paradigm of spirituality is simply a way for you to perceive things in a new way that hook you into a larger cage. I call it the ABCs of consciousness because you have A experience and B experience, but only C is witnessing it, and that's consciousness. So you can have a high and you can have a low, but only consciousness is observing either of those. And if you can depersonalize yourself from the oscillations and just recognize that you are having an experience, then you can celebrate the experience, whether it fits your preference or not, because then you are capable of receiving value from it. And sometimes that value is fuck this. The first step to even experiencing life is to depersonalize everything. Nothing means anything about you. And only then, once it is depersonalized and means nothing about you, can you truly be intimate with it. Because then you're just observing the patterns that are playing out and wondering, is this something that I want to participate anymore in my life? Then it becomes about choice versus trying to get out of something towards something else. Again, time and distance. Does this process add or subtract time and process? Because if you're in point A trying to get to point B, that once you get to B, that will be your new A point, and you will be moving to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you'll never actually enjoy the whole thing. Moving through all the processes that occur in life without actually being in a process is a magic trick. And that is what allows the ability to be fully in the experience. Otherwise, on some level, you're actually pressing away from it because you're not accepting that actually none of this means anything about you. It's just a play of experience. You're too identified with the thing to actually have an experience. And it actually doesn't even matter what you notice in any moment. Realization doesn't even exist. You're experiencing realizations, but you are realization. And you become real by fully pulling back from this meaning anything about you. Only then are you so free from identity that you can play in it. And even if you experience a perception of you going into identity or ego, that's just the most efficient path for you to have an experience at that moment. But there is only one observation being made, and that is the most efficient path. And for years, that was my mantra, no matter what happened to me. This must be the most efficient path. I'm being slowed down in traffic. This must be the most efficient path. I'm going to be raped. This is the most efficient path. I can't love myself. Must be the most efficient path. Because all that happens on the edges when you are interested in trying to maintain either the right path as opposed to the wrong path, or even subtly and trickily enough, trying to maintain a middle path or the high road, because there is still an opposite in which you are opposed. And anywhere there is an opposition, there is a subtraction of quality. Life is too smart to let you escape. The only way out is through. You will not survive your imperfections. You will, at one point, include them in your totality. And they will cease to have that experience within you as soon as you receive the value that that provided you. The past doesn't actually exist. The experience of it does, but you absolve yourself of the past the more that you receive the value. And your memory only serves a function of bringing you value that you have not yet received. When I kept having repetitive memories of being raped, it was like, why? I literally asked, why is this happening? Because I'm not obsessing about this. Why do I keep having these thoughts over and over again? Because there's value that you haven't received. Oh my God. Even my memory is functioning to serve me. When you are life, or even just continue to return over and over and over again to that understanding when it is perceived in those moments that you are forgetting. You couldn't forget, but if you could, this is what it would look like. How could anything be opposed to you? It is all you. Nothing is here to hurt or harm you, only help and hone you. Spirituality, as it's known, is largely looking at all the things that have hurt and harmed you and trying to like make them something not hurtful or harmful in your experience. But that is adding time and process. There is just resolution. Everything else that doesn't look like resolution is just how we experience process without one. My lips need a process right now. What would be the worst thing that could happen if you were wrong? When I was in church as a kid, I was observing. I was like, what is actually going on here? And I realized when I heard the words original sin, this inherent wrongness, which is a distortion, that something is wrong. The only conflict in all of existence will boil down to something is wrong, which I'm hearing Keone say right now, who's not even here right now, but to not belong. This doesn't belong. I belong and this belongs. None of it is wrong, no matter what it looks like. It's all in a process that's not actually happening. And the more that you focus on the process that is dissolving, the more you recreate it. And that is how we delete time. We are in a timeless space of infinite innocence. Infinite innocence. These are all the ways that innocence can look. And I knew this as a child, and I would purposefully make choices that seemed uninnocent because I knew who I was, to the point that me making a choice that was not innocent would automatically make it innocent. And when you have that level of confidence, which doesn't require you to know anything but to just find out, nothing will hurt or harm you, only help and hone you. It's an experience of endless experiments, and anything can be undone. And I know that to my bones. When everything is you, there is dominion. And it's not power over, it's recognition. I remember I was working on the massage table in school one day, and this guy that I was practicing on, his muscles were like so intense, and I was so tired at that point. And I just like put my hands on his body and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a long session. And I had this thought occur to me. I was like, if I am everything, then the muscle fibers in his body are a part of me. And so I put my hands on his body and I said, in oneness with these muscle fibers, I command them to relax now. And in that moment, his entire body relaxed. And I was like, okay, this is something new. At that point, it was very new. So it's just experiences and experiments. Like you can just play in everything. There's no right or wrong, but when you're stuck in that paradigm, you're not actually stuck. You're rendering. And there is a moment, a very specific moment, that you will become real. And those are a series of moments, but there is also the actualization in your body. Everything that we have always known is becoming real in the body. And what happens when it comes in the body is the exact opposite of what happens when you are integrating it in the more etheric levels of the body. When it comes into the physical body, the entire script flips. And what you will resolve in that correction are simply three things. And this is a little preview of the anatomy of awakening, which is going through a renaissance right now. The three centers, the mind, heart, and gut. Consciousness begins in the gut, your presence. That which only perceives and receives value was traumatized through the experience of wrongness, which is the primary distortion of that center of perception. Consciousness then fragments into the heart, where worry lives. There's something wrong now, I'm worried about it. How do I work with this thing that is off? It's wrong. First, I worry about it. And then I'm going to employ two different archetypes, either the rebel or the hero. The rebel is oftentimes more aware of its innocence than the hero is. Because the rebel is, I know who I am on some level, and I'm not being seen, I will be seen. And that's darkness. And until you see it, regardless of whatever process it is going through, it will get worse and worse and worse until it is seen. as that continues to be traumatized through perception, you will then fragment into the mind. And the mind is where power is expressed. It's not something that you have to reclaim or call back or do any of those things with, which are just distortions of what power is. Power is, and power is but a word away from being experienced. And in its distorted state, there's simply waiting. And waiting is rendering. And consciousness will render and render and render with all of these distractions, not because something is truly waiting or being delayed, but because it is specifically designed at a specific moment to come down and integrate through power. But since it is I am, the characters that seem to be waiting or in delay are actually reflections of the ways in which we have waited or delayed in order for us to further integrate it and only produce more love, so that everyone that we see, which is us, has the emotional equity to make different choices. And that is how we integrate from waiting to use our power through our voice to express our love, to reintegrate out of worry into care, which allows us to sit once more in the belly and live in the now, which also sounds very close to na'au, or your gut, where spirit lives. But the only thing that you have to do in order to integrate all of those things, if you are going to shoot out of original innocence, fragment all the way back, either through initiation or trauma, and then re-enter into the same space, but with all the wisdom that was collected along that experience, you don't need to be in the mind trying to resolve things. That's not where resolution is. Resolution is, but where your perception is residing can be focused away from resolution or towards it. You can be focused on the sun, or you can be focused on the moon. And it's not that the moon is wrong. It's just that the moon is the waves and the sun is the line. If you focus on the direct, most efficient path while allowing those ripples to move through you while remaining focused on just raw solution, then there's nothing for you to do but to let all that emotional processing happen in the background and fade into focus. That is all that's required. And the only thing that you must focus on is value and virtue. In the furthest fragmentation, at least inside the body, you can fragment outside of that, and it's not recommended. Done it and returned. The victim and the victimizer. And this is how power gets recycled in all of its distortions through victim and victimizer. And you'll see it all over everything right now. Distractions. It's not that those things are not happening. It's that if you are focused on that, you will have nothing to offer a world that is very much in real pain. And as I said, when you enter the body, you flip all the inversions. Most people are processing reality through their mind, then trying to filter it in their heart, and then like having massive digestive issues. When you flip the inversion, you will first perceive yourself. And when you know yourself, it will be obvious what is not you. And it's not a separation of this isn't me. It's I am where this begins. And from out of this, I move it through my heart and I express it through my being and let all around me drink from that I am. There is no longer any confusion. Confusion is a process that your mind cannot understand as you are moving into the next octave. It is a quantum leap. Confusion is not a problem. Chaos is not a problem. But when it is not perceived in the correct order, of course, the result of that is going to be off. Feel what is happening here now. Where is the crisis other than something that you're thinking about? This year is going to be fucking wild, but it's not scary. The fire isn't burning you, it's burning everything that is not you. The world was destroyed by water, and the next time it will be destroyed by fire. Prophecy, right? It's an internal fire. And when you are going through a lot of cellular debris that is transmuting, the level of heat in your body will be extreme. You're actually not even getting sick. Your body is transmuting what is dead energy in your field. But you won't be able to perceive that. You will not be able to perceive that if something is wrong. And for me, this is where things get very clear in what has happened since 2020. I actually manifested. I told the universe, I was like, give me COVID. I was like, I want to experience COVID and clear it so I know what's happening. I'll go first. Oh boy, I definitely experienced it. And I was having all the symptoms, all the symptoms. And this lady reached out to me in the middle of all the lockdowns, and she said, Spirit's telling me I'm supposed to work with you right now. And when she said that, I got the same message that was like, yes, I'm supposed to work with her. But I'm like sick. I shouldn't be like going to meet someone right now, right? That's wrong, right? So you start to see how these storylines are playing out. Anything to distract you from your now to what is relevant for you. And this is how we move into decentralized time. It's all about what's right for you. When you're listening to you, you are always on divine timing because there's nothing else other than divine timing here, even if it looks like you're waiting. So I was doing a massage session with her, and then I'm noticing all this energy is moving through me. And I'm feeling like the tightness in the lungs, like, I mean, the whole thing, extreme fatigue, like all of it. By the end of that massage, I no longer had COVID because I never had COVID. I was experiencing an upgrade. And as I moved the energetics of what that upgrade was through her body, I had my hands on the back of her heart, and then I was just like, oh, I was like, there's a lot of energy. So I just kept my hands there and like was letting it flow out. And then I realized all this tightness in my chest, all the grief, I could taste the grief. It was so strong. Because energetically, our world had collapsed in a certain moment, and what was known as the pandemic was actually the after effects. As the energetics of that shift came in, it was flushing out of the world all that's not in resonance with what is. And the process that we observed was already done. It's just that's how the physical accounts for the quantum shift that already occurred. So I'm working with her, and then at the end, she's like, oh my God, I just feel so much better, like so great. And I was like, yeah, me too. Funny story. I totally thought I had COVID before this session. And yeah, I felt like I probably shouldn't have come saw you, but I just followed my intuition. And she's like, that's so wild that you say that, because I also thought I had COVID and I was told not to tell you. And we were brought together to clear and actualize all the frequencies in the body. Because in my experience, my entire life, whatever I shift internally, I instantly or soon after watch everything around me shift in the same frequency. And as we are awakening to larger and larger aspects of what we govern in consciousness, that will all overlap into a single container of one consciousness of infinite beings. And it will all be governed by one consciousness that looks like many beings. And that is individuated communion with the one I am. There's nothing else. How do you work with a virus? As most of you know, that I work as a medical mystic, using health to integrate God. A virus is nothing other than a manifestation of you as a guardian angel designed to carry you through a set of initiations. And if you've taken interior design, anatomy of a healer, you'll know from, I believe it's class 1, diagnosis means through dia, gnosis, spiritual mysteries. So you are moving through the knowledge of spiritual mysteries the moment that you receive a diagnosis, but you think something is wrong. And so you amplify the inversion. That's not what's happening. So as more pandemic propaganda will begin to filter through, it's not something that's wrong. It's actually amplifying the inversion so loud that we have no other option. And the guardian spirits that manifest, that are part of us, that amplify the inversions, are completely in service. And when you acknowledge them as equal aspects of consciousness, they will immediately tell you how to resolve them, because there's no longer any need for them to exist. Many of you know that I share ridiculous things out loud. Well, I forget what year it was. Actually, they never found it, which was the interesting thing. But they told me, they're like, oh yeah, you have gonorrhea. I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. And not only that, but they said it was antibiotic resistant because it wouldn't go away, even though they could never find the bacteria itself. I never tested positive for it, but had all the symptoms. Many things like this have happened to me. It's quite interesting. But that's because my whole path has been these little guardians that were designing me into what I wanted to become, which is a medical mystic. So everything has been serving the journey. And that was one of the most powerful moments, because I had gone through like 2 rounds of antibiotics and I'm like, oh my God, this is like not going away. And so I sat in meditation and I said, hey, what are you doing here? And in my vision, I saw millions of eyes that were like munching on my body, which, side note, bacteria actually digest the emotional body that you're not processing. So again, service. So I'm asking them, I'm like, why are you guys here? What's going on? They're like, are you talking to us? And I said, yeah. And they're like, oh, we're not used to being acknowledged at all. And I was like, oh yeah, well, I mean, obviously you're here for a reason. I know that you have value. So why are you here? And they said, oh my God, no one has ever recognized us as equal aspects of consciousness. And I said, well, thank you for being here. And I said, why are you here though? And they said, to ensure your relentless commitment to health. And I said, oh my God, thank you. That's amazing. Thank you for serving me in that way. And they said, now that you have honored us as equal aspects of consciousness, we will divulge our secrets. And I was like, what does that mean? And instantly I'm getting all of these herb names that I have never heard of. Specific amounts of different things and another dose of azithromycin at the European standard, they said. And I was like, okay, which was double the amount. Cryptolepis, alcornia, a couple different herbs, grapeseed extract of some like super concentrate or something, I forget. So I look up these herbs and they are what they use in Africa for antibiotic resistant gonorrhea. Can't actually say that I ever had it because I never tested positive for it, but that's what they said. And I definitely had those symptoms. So what is actually happening? Is anything wrong on the planet happening? Tell me now. Or is there just things that you don't prefer and haven't learned to receive value from? The only experience of waiting that's real is the value you haven't received yet. And your entire reality will turn the fuck on the moment that you receive the value. Massive shifts of consciousness will occur when you receive value. When you recognize the virtues that are being cultivated in the experience that you're having, there is nothing that can stop you from thriving. What is it other than to catalyze you? Even more amazing about the whole gonorrhea thing is I actually ran into ran into them online. Life brings me these people in like really mystical ways. Like it's really interesting. Like this guy from Canada. And suddenly he's telling me about German new medicine. And I'm telling him my experience of like having conversations with bacteria and recognizing them and receiving these downloads. And he's like, oh, that's really interesting. Like I had a similar experience, but in a different way because I was aware of German new medicine. I just looked up the chart for gonorrhea when I was experiencing it. And notice how I say experiencing. Possession, very unique frequency that's being worked out right now in so many ways. You are experiencing it. You don't have it. You're experiencing it. And again, like I said, depersonalize. This is the experience of as if. So anyways, he's telling me this and he's like, yeah, I just looked up the chart. He's like, I wasn't going to take any antibiotics or anything. And I just looked up what the conflict was in German new medicine. And I worked on that conflict. And 2 weeks later, had no symptoms, went back and tested negative. Because the bacteria were eating away at the emotional debris that was brought up by the conflict. So the conflict completes. There's no reason for the bacteria to be there. You resolve the frequency. This is why I say in my classes, like frequency first. If the frequency is fucked, it doesn't matter how much holistic stuff you do, it's always going to revert because the frequency is the proprioceptor. So you have your muscles and then you have your Golgi tendons, the proprioceptors, which hold everything in place. If you manipulate the muscle, but you don't change the proprioceptors, which are holding the muscle will eventually return to that position. The frequency is the same. So people do all these antibiotics and, antivirals and, antifungals or whatever they're using, but they're not fixing the frequency. And everything in your life is a frequency. And the primary one, in order to up-level all aspects of your life, which is not to like escape, it's actually to become more real. Is forgiveness in both of its opportunities. Forgiven in the past, given for the future. In the middle of forgiven and given for is now. And if you allow your now, your gut, to inform each moment right now, what's given for will arrive as it's meant to bubble up through your experience. And what's forgiven will be forgotten the moment that you receive the value enough. You can like do all kinds of muscle testing on my body, all the things that happen in my past. My body does not show that that ever happened because I've received enough value from it for it to no longer exist even as memory or knowledge. I have the memory because I can access those records, but my body does not. And part of that is because you, in each of those moments, what forgiveness really is, forgiveness doesn't actually exist, but as a concept, right? Forgiveness, what it actually is, and it is an acceptance that only you are here. And you do that through value and virtue. Notice how everything that I'm talking about is now. What can you do now? Not let's Reiki things so that the energy moves or whatever. And not that Reiki's wrong. Although I did have to undo those attunements because it was like totally screwing with my energy. When you try and get things away, the cord that attaches you to the value that you're not receiving in that moment amplifies. And you think you're failing at doing the thing. And it's not doing the thing that you're failing at. The failure is to receive the value that it's only you here. And if it's only you here, why am I experiencing this? What is the point of this? Show me this from the highest, fullest perspective. Show me this from God's perspective, or whatever you want to call it. Everyone that you see is your soul family. The ones that you don't like are the ones that have the most to teach you. Any character that you see in your reality has value for you. And some of that value may be like, fuck this connection, like I'm done with the abuse or whatever it is. It's not like, let me soak in the value of being hit repeatedly. Like, no. Everyone is here showing you something. And if you just keep in the back of your awareness, this is me. I am here. I am the star, the co-star, the director, all the actors, the space in between, all the props and set materials. What is the value of this moment? And if I don't like it, maybe I should change it. And if I don't like it, maybe I should find out why. And if I can totally dissolve my preference for even just a fraction of a second, part of my identity will dissolve so that I can actually experience totality. And it's not that preference is wrong, but to allow preference to be preference and to allow this moment to be this moment. They don't actually need to clash. Just because the moment and your preference are different doesn't mean anything is wrong. And really only one thing is happening, and that is life is showing you where you're not breathing. And you think your breath just only exists in your body, but your breath is actually the entire universe. And when you can sit and breathe throughout the entire universe, become aware of where your breath is not moving in the furthest reaches of what you can perceive, breathe there. The furthest depths within you, breathe there. See something on the news that bothers you, breathe into it. That is the only thing that is really happening. Your breath is the bridge between spirit and body, and actually it's the thing that brings them so close together that there is nothing in separation, because there isn't any separation. This is all I am. And your breath will teach you that. Because anywhere you are restricting your breathing is something that you're saying, I am not this, on some level, which is just, this is wrong or shouldn't be here. If you can relax into any moment, there's nothing but power. And when you're not relaxed, it doesn't mean that there's a problem. It's just a reflection of where you're not breathing. But instead of breathing, you're turning it into a process trying to resolve it. Keeping you stuck in a healing journey that will never end. When instead you could be in the breathing journey, a journey of the infinite ways in which you can relax and enjoy the moving parts that never cease, as only the one I am is experiencing and witnessing it all with grace and ease. Allowing and distributing all the realizations throughout all that I can see, that I am now. And since that is always expanding, your experience will always be moving, just like the breath. As Genevieve is saying, the breathing journey has officially replaced the healing journey. It has. In fact, the healing journey was just an imagination that the breath was having to experience something other than that one thing that is. So bless the healing journey and goodbye. It was never wrong. There are just things that are more right for this moment. And perhaps something even deeper than the breath will dawn. And in that moment, we will breathe into the succession of our excellence. We are simply moment by moment becoming more coherent. Just as a crystal layer by layer becomes clearer and clearer because it is utilizing all the information in each layer to grow and expand. Does that mean any part of that crystal is wrong because one layer was less coherent than another? When the crystal is fully formed, was any part of that crystal delayed? Does the fullness of the crystal worry about its parts? And the dance between perceptions of holding back and doing it all are just how your mind continues the play of waiting. And it does this by utilizing energy in its analysis to perpetuate its own experience of your consciousness being closest to that perception center, because everything has self-preservation as its mandate, even the experiences that you don't like, and even the perceptions that are not as clear. This is why when you go on a cleanse, all of those things are coming up because they are trying to self-preserve. But like I said earlier, just allowing everything to fade into the background as you keep one focus. And it's not trying to get out of having an experience. It's just that whatever the experience is, it's the most efficient path. I love this is the most efficient path because it's like beyond neutrality and full acceptance of value. Because it's not right and it's not wrong. It's not fast or slow. It's just whatever is most efficient. As I laid in bed dying for like 2 years, being reborn, I guess this is the most efficient path. Whatever needs to happen in order to account for a quantum leap, let it. Because there is nothing else here than I am. So what could be wrong? Why would I be worried? And what would cause me to wait? To receive I am now. I am pleased. I'm fucking grateful to be here in my life. I am ecstatic for 2024. Pull back all your perceptions of the external as being an incoming experience. This is all what's leaving as the higher expressions of what is reality comes in to fill the forms. Maui, as it's been revealed to me, the Lahaina fires, that was to account for the sound of creation finally catching up to the light of creation. The impact of the light and sound merging has caused an immediate ripple effect of catastrophe across the entire planet and everything. Because the fullness of the moment of creation has now been realized. Light, the sound, this crux, a moment of massive evolutionary leaping. That's where we find ourselves. There is nothing wrong with what has happened. It will likely look very different from the preferences that you had in mind. But if there is only one thing and you allow yourself to be absorbed into that, while also applying yourself and distributing your gifts, talents, and abilities to the world around you, there's nothing that is going to stop the most magical, ridiculous, expansive reality to dawn, because that is the only thing that is here. And that is the only thing that I am observing. That is the only thing that I am observing, the most efficient path. And it does not have to be a catastrophe. But however the forms need to move in order to account for what is in form, let it. Makali'i fern from Pohala Hawaiian Botanicals, highly, highly recommended to integrate this and feel it. Everything is going to shift and change. It doesn't even matter if you have a preference for how it to shift and change. Maybe never that or better. It's a process I designed for relationships, but it can be applied to anything. And it's to maintain quantum superposition while being fully integrated in form. Maybe never. I know this one so deeply. Maybe I never get what I want. Full surrender. Full surrender. Maybe never. Maybe you never get what you want. Maybe you never heal. You won't, because there's no need to, but it's besides the point. Absorb that. Maybe never. Feel that. What does that bring up? Whatever that brings up are the exact emotional waves, patterns, and functions that need to be tangoed with in order to find yourself in quantum superposition along with the other parts. Maybe never. Full surrender. of opposition. That we all love as human beings. That. I want that. Getting so specific on exactly what you want. I'm really good at this because everything I've always wanted, I've always gotten. But it's because I was completely surrendered to never receiving it and always open to or better. And that is high magic or surrendered magic. And it requires full absorption into I am and all that goes along with that in order to express it. Speak and so it is. But you can't actually speak and so it is until so it is not is also okay with you. And then magically, it's the reversal. You give up this, but you get that. It's like you give up what you want, but then you actually get it. It's like this interesting game that we're playing. Maybe never. That, getting so specific, fully committing to your human. Fully committing to that. And you can see in a relationship dynamic, right? You want a partner. Maybe never. I actually came up with this because I was told by a very, very powerful psychic friend of mine. She's like, yeah, you don't have a partner in this lifetime. And it was like, maybe never that or better is what I came up with in order to resolve that because there was like this truth in it for the moment. I don't believe it's true, but that was nothing wrong, right? That manifestation of her was me offering me something to resolve in me an attachment to outcome that would actually prevent that outcome. So you can begin to zoom out and see how all of these things are playing inside of you. Everything you think is outside of you is playing inside of you. And whether you know that to be true or not, reminding yourself that that is what is happening to relax into the integration of that, which will occur whether you do that or not. Just one is more delightful and wonderful than the other. And that preference is fine. And you will also be faced with grueling experiences just to absolve you of preference. But don't let that stop you from having a preference. That, or better. You want to experience miracles? Anything that you can imagine seems limitless, right? Imagination, limitless. Imagination is contained by something that created imagination. Imagination is one of the worst ways to manifest. But only disintegrated aspects of identity will tell you that the law of attraction and manifesting through what you can imagine is like the highest form of magic. And it's actually like specks of dirt on a piece of glass that you're looking at, thinking that you're seeing the whole picture. You're not even looking at reality at that point. or better. How I pray, how I talk with others is an integration of absorption into that. If you've ever received a blessing from me for your birthday or any time, may this cycle bless you greater than you could ever dream of asking to receive for yourself. And that is my intention with every single client that ever comes into my field. Every single person, myself, whatever I imagine, great. That specific, love it, commit to that. And, or better, better than I could ever dream of asking to receive for myself. Even if your mind works like mine and you're like scanning for efficiency all the time, that is still within imagination. It's not wrong. It's not like the least efficient path. It's the most efficient of that octave of consciousness. But show me greater than I could ever dream of asking to receive for myself. Show me the most efficient path beyond anything that I could imagine. You'll get answers like that, and they will seem ridiculous sometimes. And if you just follow it, you will begin an integration process with beyond imagination. And when you are integrated into beyond imagination, you're a miracle worker. It's not like fanciful or crazy. It's super simple. It's just that no one wants to surrender to that because it requires your individual will to be absorbed into I am. But if there's an individual will within the experience of I am, what is that? And we can think of this free will, but why would you want anything else other than the most efficient, powerful, blissful, ridiculously amazing path and will for your life? And to the ego structure, that sounds terrifying because it sounds like you're giving up something. But it's actually an identity of you being placed at the altar of you. Nothing is here to hurt or harm you, only help and hone you. Resolving all resistance to integrating I am. Allowing your ego to be in service to that until there is no difference between that and your personality. And I'm not even saying that I'm all the way there. It doesn't actually even matter to me because there is only one choice. And my choice is absorption into the presence that I am. Amplified through my heart and celebrated as I shine, only reflecting what we are. No separation. All of this is happening inside of us, even as we look out and see it as if it's outside of us. Fuck spirituality means fuck pretending to become something you already are. Resolve time by accepting that it's already here. There is no process. But you are addicted to process because you think there's something wrong with you and you're worried about it and you're stuck in rendering. You're not even real yet. But you are real. But you won't experience that, nor will we, until you accept it and move from that place. That place that is, I am that I am. Everything is here serving me because I am serving it. Why are you guys here? Thank you for being here. It's a little shocking. But thank you. And then all hierarchy is destroyed. Synarchy is not something that we are getting to. It's already here. You're just not observing it because you favor hierarchy for some reason. And if that is the game that you enjoy playing at this moment, so be it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why all of these patterns that are unenjoyable in our lives must first be depersonalized, because if you attach to them as something about you, you will recreate them over and over and over again in a process called healing. Healing does not exist. We are only on a breath journey, and the deeper and more expansive you can breathe, the more intelligent and beautiful you will become. Because that is all that's here. As you leave this activation today, you will move into a period of integration, which can often feel, in perspective, as a contraction, or that you're not getting it, or that you're losing it. All of the ideas that I am not, that are leaving as only that enters. And as that enters, it flushes out of reality all that's not in resonance. That's actually how we experience process and time. It's like reality folding in on itself, and it's like coming in and pressing out. And that experience of coming in and pressing out is this way, not this way. And not that this way is wrong, it's just not what's happening. As a child, I used to walk around and imagine everything was moving underneath me as I was walking forward. It's a fun experiment. And if you can actually take that and expand it out into your whole entire life, everything is moving around you. I don't normally read with cards when I do readings. Don't normally do readings anymore, but when I do them for fun or whatever, I don't read past or future. I read a toroidal field. The center card is where you are right now, the present moment. What's the present energy? The past is actually what's already integrated. So the card below, the card above, the incoming energy, the energy that hasn't, it's like here coming into the toroidal field of you that is the only thing that exists in all of existence, and we all experience ourselves within that, projected from outside to inside and back and forth in the oscillation between inner and outer. That incoming energy, the present energy, what you've already completed and is returning to the totality in order to be recreated, to continue the experience of expansion that's not even actually happening, because consciousness is just that which is consistent across every transition that is experienced, which has a beginning and end, which means that it is in perspective, which doesn't make it less than, it just makes it ephemeral. So we celebrate the forms. Be in awe of the process that's not actually happening, while we remain upright within ourselves to experience all that is with joy, with ease and grace, no longer taking in the external reality as if it's an incoming experience. It's just what's being flushed out. Remind yourself again and again and again by honoring it. As I went through a massive death process over 2 years, crazy symptoms in my body, going blind, bleeding through my skin, each organ system dying one by one, being reborn. I know that inside of my own cells. It's all just what's leaving. And I asked, what do I need to do in order to heal? What needs to be resolved in order for this to heal now? And when I say heal, I mean integrate absorption into only that which is real, which is that everything is already resolved. I can hear my friend right now, like, healing. I still use it sometimes, but it's not the way that I mean it. And my body said, resolve your anxiety. Perfect. So, resolution of anxiety is the incoming energy. What's arising out of that, as all the different things that are coming out, are just the things that are leaving. Oh my God, I'm bleeding through my skin. Thank you for showing me the anxiety that is resolving right now. And my spleen and my bone marrow resolved. because I am only observing the most efficient path, which requires me to notice that everything has value. Presence is that which only perceives and receives value. And when you are praying for greater than what you could ever imagine, you are actively participating in creating new patterns. So recognize the patterns that need to leave and begin actively working through coded language, prayer, intention, affirmation, whatever you want to call it. I like to call it prayer. Which is simply commanding reality as what are you praying to? If all I am is here, it is to the most expansive aspect of self that is also here now within this body, within all bodies. Just for the glory of individuated communion as I am. And when you can take off the veils like that, all your karmic debt, whatever that even means, is gone. There's just things that you haven't received value from. There's no evil in the world. There are only those who have not received value within themselves. And why would you keep them in a delay any longer by delaying your love from entering their being? No matter how much or little love you receive, always give more. In this orientation towards life, nothing but the love you are has power. Darkness or unconsciousness only serves as a catalyst for more of you to become. There's no getting around that one. It's too simple. It's just, will you apply it or not? And there's no judgment on that. It's your experience. I'm going to love you regardless. So you decide. I've already made my choice. Thank you. I love you. In all of your iterations, I see you. Everything I am belongs, perfectly placed to experience a process that's only happening in perspective. Honoring completely with breath. Breathing into every corner of existence that you can sense all aspects of it that you can remember and the parts that you don't. May the breath move through me. May the breath move and breathe itself through me. May I be a vessel of only the breath in full alignment and surrender to the breath that I am. You may watch this transmission again and watch the difference between the quality of now and the quality at the beginning of the call. At the beginning of the call, because I'm so sensitive, I feel all of it, and I am simply adding my breath to each little thing, and I am translating what I am breathing into. It's literally what I'm doing. So the tightness of the transmission at first was me like feeling just the contraction. And the magic trick that I am doing is simply breathing into all those edges and noticing what's there and expressing something to resolve it with my breath. And move into relaxation and expand us all into that space through my voice. Witnessing and recognizing all aspects with love, honor, and equality. Because when you recognize all that I am as equal aspects of consciousness, they will begin behaving as such. I remember in high school, just observing. And people would tell me, this person is that way, or this person's that. And I would experience them in a completely different way. This is why I love spending time with people alone, because when it's just me and another person, only we are interacting, and other fields within this individuated communion are not applying their distortions in that field. And it is just me, and I'm going to be the leader of love. And so my experience of those people was always lifetimes away from what people would say about them, because I was calling forth the greatest version of them, which is the only thing that we are doing here. By me sharing this with you, I am only observing the most efficient path, and that is everything is okay, and I love you. From that space, we have the emotional equity to move into new choices and do different things to express from the truth of our being, rather than the inverted distortion of what we think we are. Waiting, worried, and wrong, inverted. I am, I can, and I wish. Co-creative power. 2024 will be a series of experiences that allow you to integrate which direction you're going to perceive reality from and how you will apply yourself. I'm not even going to say choose wisely, because that would assume there is something other than the most efficient path here. You will choose the most efficient path at whatever rate and speed is most efficient for you. And there will come a moment when there is no choice because you've already made one. And that's the moment that there is nothing but efficiency. And you are exuding the light that is. And reality around you can only drink from that. Because it's you finally aligning with all that you are to honor the truth within the individual. And this is when heaven on earth arrives, and it doesn't require any waiting. Don't wait for heaven. Become it. Aloha ma. I'm going to close here, just basking in all of this. If you have any questions, you may email me, and I'll get back to you. And I love you guys so much. Have a beautiful night. Aloha.